we obviously discussed Indiana Jones 5 shaping up to be a bit of a failure. It does bring to mind a bigger thing that's been swirling around Lucasfilm and Disney at the moment when it relates to finance. I was hesitant even to bring this up because it seems so ridiculous that it can't possibly happen. But there's a lot of rumors going around that Disney is considering selling Lucasfilm, particularly because they have a very large bill that they apparently are owing Comcast for their share of Hulu, and it really goes into the billions of dollars. Like, this is a massive deal, and they don't necessarily have the money they need to be able to pay it off. And so people have suggested that they might actually be inclined to sell off Lucasfilm. Now, as I say, normally I would just dismiss this out of hand as just a ridiculous rumor, but there's a little part of me, right, that thought it's worth considering this. And I say this because look at what Lucasfilm produces and what franchises they have available for you to, to make money off of. There's Star Wars, which I think we'd all agree here is pretty much dead in the water. Like, they're not in a position to make money off Star Wars now. The TV shows, no one cares, and they're not generating much revenue in terms of Disney Plus subscriptions. They haven't made a new movie in 3-4 years. It was like Rise of Skywalker was 2019?
19.
Yeah, the end of 2019.
So it's been 4 years, and it's going to be several more years before any of these ones that have been announced are going to see the light of day, if they ever do. And I think we could pretty much guarantee they're not going to be successful anyway. And Indiana Jones was the last major thing that they have, and that's probably going to lose money for them as well. With the insane budget on this thing, there's no way it's going to make that back. Oh yeah, and there was Willow. That went down great. So it does make me think, right? If you've got this studio, this IP, right, with a bunch of franchises in it that you can't make money out of, what is the point in having it? Is there something to be said for just cutting your losses and saying, screw it, we'll just sell it? I don't know. It's an interesting one.
I don't think so while Kathleen Kennedy's in charge. Because
interesting. How much longer will that be?
Well, I hear she's due to leave any day now.
Did you get that from reliable sources?
Do those reliable sources wear
reliable sources? Reliable sources, barbecue and ketchup. So I don't think, while Kathleen Kennedy's there, I don't think they will, because it will be seen as an abject failure. But when her contract runs out, which I believe is next year now, when her contract runs out, it depends whether or not they feel as if there's any life left in the franchise. At the minute, it's dead. It is absolutely dead. When a company who ran a franchise into the ground with its sequel trilogy couldn't make a movie because of the failure of the sequel trilogy, then announces that their return to the cinema, which will be 6 years after the failure of the sequel trilogy, will have the lead character of the sequel trilogy, you have got to say to yourself, you've just literally, never mind shooting yourself in the foot, you've just shot yourself in the head. Because there is not a chance in hell that this movie is going to be popular, not a chance in hell that this is going to make money. Nobody cared about Kenobi. Everyone's going to bring Ewan McGregor back as Obi-Wan. He'll save it. But that was so bad, that show. So terrible. Nobody cared. And what do we get? We've got 4 billion subscriber losses in the last quarter for Disney Plus.
Million.
These shows are not 4 million. Yeah.
That would be very impressive.
That is a lot of 4 billion. 4 million lost in the last quarter. These shows are not bringing in subscribers. None of them. None of these shows are bringing them in.
Yeah.
There was I won't go to another company. Fuck it. Well, let's just stick with this one. But they're not bringing any money in with that. They're not going to bring any money in with the Rey movie. I'm absolutely pom-poms on cheerleading for them to do this, because I want to see Disney come back with Star Wars, Rey, older, wiser Jedi Master, and it to just fall on its face. I'm all in. Can't wait.
Because the argument is often made about the MCU, for example. Well, wouldn't it have been better had they waited a good few years after Endgame to rebuild and build up anticipation and things like that? So you can see superficially how the arguments apply to Star Wars as well. We'll wait, we'll build up anticipation, and eventually we'll come back. It'll be brand new, and everyone will love it again.
But
that's completely no. They didn't stop because they keep doing the Disney Plus stuff, though. As already well established, Disney Plus doesn't really have wide audience appeal. But also, you're not really building up anticipation or trying to make a clean break with the past if, asAz says, you're going to make your next film have the head of the front woman of the sequel trilogy in the main role. That doesn't work particularly well. Against the argument for selling it, though, big businesses are often the slowest to recognize the sunk cost fallacy, and there are a huge number of things that they haven't tried yet, which I think they would try first before they went all the way and effectively nuked the company. And one of them would be changing the head of the company once Kathleen Kennedy is gone. I think they will give somebody else a good long run to try and turn it around. They might give a few people a good long run to try and turn it around. They haven't quite got to the desperation levels yet of bringing back familiar characters on the cinema screen as opposed to the TV screen. Obviously, they've been trying to do it with Disney Plus and it hasn't worked, but I think they will try and do it with a proper film series before they let the company go. And then there's who's going to buy it, because not very many people have the kind of money that you could possibly spend to, buy a company which is still...
I was going to say, I know one guy
who... a tenth of the money, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, well, that's one of the rumors, and I think it's ludicrous, but, again, it would be the absolute... sometimes life is stranger than fiction, and it would just be the height of lunacy if he ended up buying it back at a massive discount and basically made, a couple of $1 billion for doing absolutely nothing.
That would be so funny.
I could see Disney, though... Sorry, go on.
Because he decanonizes the sequel.
Yeah,
that's what I was going to say.
Decanonizes it and puts a lock on any other film projects ever getting made ever. It's perfect, George. Nature is healing.
Goodbye, Star Wars. We love you.
But to the point you made, Little Platoon, about building up the anticipation by waiting a few years. I think that only works if you went out on a high. It would worked with Marvel because Endgame was popular generally. Even you can debate the merits of that actual movie, but it was very popular with audiences. Rise of Skywalker wasn't, and so what you generally want to do is try and get... you want to recover from a failure as quickly as possible rather than letting it fester, which is what they've done. And so, the huge gap that we've had in movie releases has absolutely worked to their detriment. I think when they come back with whatever garbage they've been able to shart out... with the Rey movie or the Dave Filoni effort, whatever, no one's going to care. They'll have forgotten about it. They'll have moved on.
Yeah, and that's the other aspect of it as well, which is that they haven't taken the time away to actually plan a coherent trilogy arc, for example. So that was one of the arguments for waiting, is that it gives you time to rework things, and then you can set a new vision in store, and you can plan out another sequel trilogy that reinvests people with the strength and the magic of the story. But their planned next 3 releases are 3 entirely separate timelines that don't interact with each other at all, with 3 different sets of characters. The Filoni film is going to be completely reliant upon the continuing success, which already is gone, of The Mandalorian and Ahsoka and the characters that he's building up. So that doesn't particularly work. In fact, of all of them, I would be surprised if that one got made, because there's no money value in making a cinematic film on TV properties that aren't making money themselves. So I wouldn't be entirely surprised to see that get shelved. And then there's the one that's set way back in time with the first ever Jedi, which can't possibly link into Rey, except insofar as, I don't know, well, they could probably magic some way of doing it, but I don't think it would. So they haven't even got a coherent vision for what they want to do with the thing. And then on the sidelines, you've got Taika Waititi still working on his. And have they officially cancelled Rian Johnson's one yet? Or is that in the permanent purgatory of Lucasfilm?
It's not officially cancelled.
They never officially cancel anything, though. They always just kind of let people try to hopefully forget about it. And
Rogue Squadron isn't officially cancelled.
Yeah, good luck with that,
I'm
Patty.
still on board with a Rian Johnson trilogy. Do it, Disney. Do it. Go on.
I fucking dare you.
that would be the ultimate of doubling down.
I mean, it's interesting, their strategy as well, because you can tell that what they were trying to set up with things like Solo and Rogue One was they wanted to start having their own MCU of Star Wars movies. And so, that's the model that allows you to make a shit zillion dollars. It's basically a money printing machine. It worked for Marvel, we're going to do it with Star Wars, because there's a whole bunch of different stories we can tell, and we can have an interconnected plot line. It'll be fantastic. It failed miserably because the mainline movies ended up being garbage, and like it killed the momentum of any of the spin-off ones. And all they then tried to do was take that same model and port it over to TV and do it cheaper and quicker and shitter even than that. And so you end up with what you've got now with this whole myriad of stories. Some of them are disjointed and set in different time periods, like the Obi-Wan show, but then you've got other ones like The Mandalorian, Book of Boba Fett, Ahsoka. They're all going to try and be part of this stupid interconnected MCU of Star Wars, which again failed miserably.
It did, but I mean, it's a complaint as old as time, which is that they began by ditching their own expanded universe. That was the first thing they did. So the equivalent with the MCU would be saying, we're going to make a cinematic universe based on Marvel Comics. The first thing we'll do is throw the entire history of comics on the bonfire, and then we're going to start it all over again. We'll reinvent the wheel and accidentally make it a square, and then we're going to put that on the screen and hope that it pulls people in. It was a weird decision to be made from the off, and then the sheer fucking hubris, to coin a phrase, of saying, well, there was no source material to draw on in Star Wars. It was like, that's only true because you destroyed all of it.